questions. Premier, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, and thank you everyone for taking some time to be here today ahead of an upcoming and I think important trade mission to China, where we'll be advocating on behalf of not only the Saskatchewan agriculture industry, but specifically the Saskatchewan and Canadian canola industry, the pork industry, the pulse crops, as well as the Canadian seafood industry on the broader relationship between Canada and China and the opportunities that may lie ahead for that relationship to actually expand as opposed to contracting. I'm joined today by my colleague, the Minister of Trade and Export Development, Warren Kaeding. He will be leading a parallel trade mission to South Korea, while I will be in China, and then we will meet up in Japan for the last number of days of this mission. As we know, harvest is underway in our province of Saskatchewan and more broadly across North America right now, and we have heard and we have listened specifically to Saskatchewan producers as well as those businesses that are involved in exporting Saskatchewan agri-food and ingredients around the world, including we had a summit right here in Saskatoon just a couple of weeks ago. And what we heard is these Chinese tariffs, whether it be on seed, whether it be on canola oil, canola meal, as well as peas, pork, and more broadly on Canadian seafood, they need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed not only by the province of Saskatchewan, but by the nation of Canada. And so we've been working very closely alongside the last number of weeks, and I would say months and even longer than that, but more specifically with current trade issues with the United States and Japan. I've been working with our federal government closely on what this mission might entail and what the targets of this mission are and what our more broad targets are as we move through the next number of weeks. I'm very pleased with the announcement this morning from the federal government that the parliamentary secretary to Prime Minister Carney, Kody Blois, who was at our meeting a couple of weeks ago in Saskatoon, he'll be joining us in our mission in China, and that is a positive, I think, not only for the mission, but a positive for where we can get to in the broader opportunities that we might have with a country like China. So thank you to Prime Minister Carney for prioritizing this mission and ensuring that we are working together so that Kody Blois, his parliamentary secretary, can join us. I was also pleased to see the Prime Minister Carney and the federal government and the Premier of China reactivate the Joint Economic and Trade Commission, or JETSI, which had sat dormant for a number of years, and that was re-energized and reactivated here just this past month. And this, again, I would say is a positive step in the broader opportunities that may lie ahead for our two countries. We've said from the beginning that it isn't going to be myself, the Premier of Saskatchewan, and the President of China that are going to stand up at the end of this mission and say, here, we have signed a trade deal. It needs to be the Prime Minister of Canada. And what we are making every effort to do is to bring the opportunity for that conversation of a closer trading relationship between Canada, specifically Saskatchewan agriculture and China, to pull that meeting forward and to bring those conversations forward. Our mission in China will focus on both meetings with Chinese government officials as well as industry stakeholders who are directly impacted by the tariffs as they come into place. Following our time to China, I'll meet up with Minister Kaeding in Japan. Japan, as we know, is increasingly an important market for a number of Saskatchewan goods, not just agri-food goods or ingredients, but a number of Saskatchewan goods, but also canola. As global trade patterns are shifting, and we're seeing that virtually on a daily basis, there are new opportunities for our products in Saskatchewan to gain market share in many markets around the world. And as we know today, Saskatchewan products are shipped to over 160 countries around the world, and we're seeing some shift in the flow patterns of those products, of which Minister Kaeding and some of the questions may speak to more specifically. Minister Kaeding, as I said, will be joining up with us in Japan on the second part of this mission. The first part of the mission, Minister Kaeding will be spending time in South Korea, looking at the opportunities and the expanding market opportunities that Saskatchewan goods have in that country. We have close ties with South Korea when it comes to agri-food products, to energy and industry stakeholders, as well as conversations around how technology is making all of our all of our products more efficient, whether they be produced in North America or whether they be in our more global relations. Saskatchewan always has had and continues to have the food, fuel, and fertilizer that the world needs, and I think that's even more relevant and evident today than it has ever been. We produce some of the most sustainably produced goods that you can find on Earth. And on behalf of Saskatchewan people, we will strongly be making the case to be part of the supply chain for many countries around the world, including the countries that we will be attending our missions to this week of South Korea, Japan, as well as China. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to look at them, talk to them.
Or is it just
with how rapid this mission came together, in particular to China, and some of the work and planning that goes in to a mission to a country like China. It is largely going to be in that country myself, Kody Blois, and a small delegation that will join us. And similar for Minister Kaeding's mission to South Korea. And then we'll join up in Japan, Minister Kaeding and myself, with the Saskatchewan delegation and carry on from there. So the answer is no, but not because that shouldn't happen. There are some active discussions potentially for a larger mission to some of the I guess you call them the economic engagement or industry engagement plans that are available in China, maybe even later this calendar year. And so there is some discussion of that potentially happening in the future. But on this particular mission, with the timeframes that it took to put together, we were actually quite pleased to see that Parliamentary Secretary Blois was able to get his paperwork in order and join us there. Well, I think the fact that we're going is a positive. And if we were able to return and to be a step in the process of bringing the Prime Minister of Canada and the President of China closer to having those discussions about moving forward, not just with respect to canola, pulse crops, pork, or seafood, but actually, moving forward on a discussion on, what opportunities might lie ahead for us and in a broader trade relationship. This again, what we see today is a president of the United States of America that is resetting trade relations with many, many countries at once. There's direct and indirect consequences to that for a country like Canada. However, we need to take care of our province and of our nation as national and subnational leaders. And I would say that with the size of the economy in China and India and other countries, the size of the population in places like China and India, as we look to diversify some Canadian exports away from the U.S., and I mean additional production, as existing supply chains are very, very difficult to change or to diversify to other markets. But as we produce more in our province and in our nation, we absolutely need to be engaging with countries like China, with countries like India, the European Union, as well as Japan, South Korea, and many others. So a success is for us to continue taking steps in that broader trade, the broader trade opportunities that we might have with a country like China, as well as Japan and South Korea. Yeah, sorry.
China really has no rush here to remove tariffs. I guess as prices go down, they're just going to wait until prices are at rock bottom before buying, right? So I guess what is your confidence that they will change their mind? What reason do they have to change their mind on this?
Yeah, well, I'm not as confident as you might be in understanding what is or what isn't driving the decisions that the Chinese government might make. I would say this. This is not Saskatchewan's first experience with tariff-related, whether it be actual tariff or non-tariff barriers going into China and India, for that matter. So we've dealt with this before, and in each country, the approach that we take is somewhat different. It's different with China than it might be with India, than it might be with the European Union or the United States of America. And our goal is to actually bring that conversation forward of what a positive trading relationship can actually do for the Chinese economy and opportunities in China being part of their food and maybe even their fuel supply chain. As you know, years ago, we signed a nuclear cooperation agreement with China, which never really delivered any amount of product on. the opportunity that I think we have as Canadians really does wrap itself around the effort and the intent that Canada has in diversifying some of their export value away from the United States of America. That has to be additional production, of which we're seeing steps in that space with Bill C-5. The priority of projects is going to lead to additional production. And we, I think, are actively looking alongside the federal government with how do we expand, some of that export value and land some of that export value, not only in the European Union, but in places like South Korea and Japan. India is a big market, but also China. And the reason we sell the amount of canola, for example, oil, meal, and seed into China is, one, is it's a growing market, and two, it's a premium market for us. And it has helped us diversify a significant amount of exports away from North American destinations, and has helped our ag industry diversify to a large degree, not without challenges from every 3 or 4 years, and we're certainly in one of those now. So we working alongside the federal government, first with this mission, which we hope will be a step to a broader trading relationship with the country of China.
What do you think about that?
Well, the SINP program, as we know, has been drastically cut back by the federal government, and I would say that there's a broader conversation around immigration metrics in this country, and we would always and have always encouraged immigration numbers to be focused on economic migration. It's good not only for the broader Canadian economy, it's good for communities, bringing in the needed qualifications and certifications, people with the skills to, in our case, to continue building communities and opportunities in our province. But it does need to be focused on economic migration or economic immigration. I think there is a broader opportunity at the federal level and for the provinces to participate in this conversation of focusing on economic immigration numbers and economic immigration classes, because it's good for the family that moves here, and we want families to move to Canada and make, in our case, the Saskatchewan community their home. And it's good for the communities to which they move, and it's good for the opportunities that are provided. And so I don't have a comment specific to SINP numbers that have been cut drastically, temporary foreign worker numbers. I bring in, student visas. There's conversations around those numbers, as well as, the ongoing asylum seekers that have fluctuated in numbers in places like Quebec and even Manitoba. But I think it is incumbent on us to have a robust immigration system that is focused on economic immigration, because it is truly a system that benefits everyone that's involved.
Just confirming it will only be you and Ms. Kaeding who will lead the delegation. There are no other members of the government who will be with you.
Right. Minister Kaeding, you can comment a little bit on your part of the mission and where we'll meet up.
Certainly. So our mission is going to, starting in South Korea, where we're certainly going to be engaging with a number of trade, industry, energy partners there, as well as engaging in industry roundtables. We're going to be talking CCUS, nuclear, and while we're there, we're also going to be witnessing an extension that Vito has with their infectious disease organization in South Korea. So again, just building relationships, continuing to engage with all the industry partners that we have that are established, and looking for further opportunities in South Korea. And then virtually doing the same in Japan, engaging with a number of Japanese ministries. I think the one thing to remember is that in a lot of these countries, you are there to build relationships. And ultimately, it's a government-to-government relationship where they need to feel comfortable that they are dealing with a reputable and responsible government on the other side. So that is why relationship building is so important in a lot of these missions as we go out, especially in the ASEAN region. And then from there, we're going to be meeting up towards the end of the week and engaging in a couple of conferences, and especially supporting kind of a Made in Canada conference that we're able to link with a number of Japanese-based businesses that want to do and increase their business in Saskatchewan.
As canola prices fall, it would only make sense for other countries to also wait longer for, so they can get a better price? Do you expect to lose business to other countries other than China as a result of these tariffs as well?
Yeah, I think what we will see with, the Chinese-Australian trade relationship when it comes to canola, coming back into play, is you're going to see some movement of those products around the world into the markets that they flow. And I think, in fairness, we're already seeing that to some degree with the canola that's flowing from Saskatchewan to other areas, for example, the European Union. Japan is a canola buyer. Mexico, significant canola purchaser as well. And so you are going to see some movement in the export markets of, in this case, Saskatchewan canola seed, oil, and meal. And that's what we're trying to provide certainty to in the early steps with a market like China, which I said is a significantly large market. It's also a premium market, and it's a growing market. So it's a good market for us to be in from a canola export perspective. But our largest market continues to be and will likely remain the United States of America. And we have, thankfully, I think this government, alongside industry partners, have very much prioritized our engagement in other countries around the world. As I said, Saskatchewan products reach 160 countries around the world, but we've seen a number of those countries climb to be actually billion-dollar export markets. Much of that is products like potash and canola and pulse crops as well. We've seen India in that space. We've seen Mexico in that space. We've seen even some European Union countries starting to climb. So at the end of the day, our number one market is the United States of America. Our second largest market traditionally for canola exports has been China. Again, it's a growing and a premium market, and so we want to retain both of those and continue to grow our exports to other markets around the world, like we have been in Mexico, like we have been in Japan and other areas as well. And so for us, it's all of the above. And we want access to all of those markets. If we are able to have that access, there's no need for the canola industry producers to be asking for or requesting supports from our federal government. That's not, our initial ask or our initial want or the environment that I think the ag industry wants to operate in any way, shape, or form. What we want is market access to those markets around the world, and we'll make our own way. And we'll compete with the rest of the world in the production, the very high quality, sustainable production that we have. And so there's going to be flux and flow and uncertainty in an environment largely that is precipitated by the President of the United States of America that is resetting trade relations with many, many countries all at the same time. There's direct consequences for us in Canada with the decisions that we make, not only directly with the United States of America, but I would say indirect consequences with some of the engagement and decisions that we make with other countries as well. And we're seeing that impact on the canola industry today. And so we have to navigate carefully, and I would say we have to navigate largely in lockstep with Prime Minister Carney and his government.
Has that relationship or that communication line with the federal and provincial government sort of gotten closer just based on all of the events in the last few months, or with the new government in Ottawa? Like, it feels like there's a little bit more of a, speed dial conversation happening as opposed to, sending a letter and waiting for a response.
There's a stronger leader in Ottawa. Simple as that.
Do you have any specific markets that you're targeting just to decrease our reliance on China and the United States?
Yeah, there isn't a lot of opportunity. Minister Kaeding might speak to more specifics of this. There isn't a lot of opportunity to open up, magical new markets when it comes to, canola exports. However, there is opportunity to expand on some of the existing markets that have been built over the last number of years through our trade and export offices that have, often been criticized by members of the opposition here in Saskatchewan. And thankfully, and I'm very thankful, and I know the industry is, for the work that they've done. And Mexico is one of those markets that has been significantly increasing over the last number of years in the amount of canola that is being shipped to Mexico. And so the opportunity, I would say, is twofold: is to increase some of the exports to some of these other emerging markets that we have been working on for the last decade or so, and two is to replace some of the flow of canola that may be changing and finding its way into China, and Canadian canola will continue to find its way into China. But the net effect at the end of the day is the depressing of the price which impacts our primary producers and our exporting industry here as well. But let me just speak to a couple of emerging markets that, as you see it around the world over the last number of years, and the role that our trade and export development offices have played in that.
I think the one thing to note is just the growth that we've seen in the areas that we have trade offices operating in. I think before the trade offices were established, we were about a $20 billion export market, and now we've expanded to just under $50 billion fairly consistently. And certainly what we're seeing, as Premier articulated, we've got very mature markets that ultimately you have to replace somebody else in that, so that becomes a very price-sensitive market. But there's also significant areas where you see great opportunities for growth, and that's certainly in areas where we're seeing population growth. So the ASEAN region in particular is an area that is both growing in population but also growing in economic wealth. And when you see that kind of growth, they're able to afford more products, better products, and certainly willing to look at all the agri-food components that we produce here in Saskatchewan. So the ASEAN area is certainly one. So that's Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, United Arab Emirates, India, Japan, Korea. And then the other area I think that definitely has a lot of growth, especially in the ag product side, is South America, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Ecuador. Certainly see significant areas there. The other area that we also see emerging demand from is areas that were in the past using Russia as a supply. And now that they know that they need to look and divest of their supply agreements with Russia, they're looking for a safer, more secure, dependable partner, and that is definitely what they're going to get from Saskatchewan and certainly from Canada. So that that Poland, Hungary, Romania area is another area that we're seeing significant growth. I believe we shipped our first load of potash into Poland here this spring, which again is a huge market for us when it comes to ingredients like potash. We're seeing that kind of growth, hearing it every day from Cameco and Orano and the uranium industry as the incredible potential, the advancements in nuclear energy developments around the world. So we certainly see uranium as being a huge priority. And critical minerals, some of those that we haven't even extracted out of the ground yet, but we certainly are knowing that critical minerals are in demand around the world. And again, those that are using critical minerals are looking for a safe and dependable source, and that's us.
I would summarize when it comes to foreign markets around the world, and when it comes to looking at food, fuel, and fertilizer produced in Saskatchewan, what we hear from those foreign markets, and specific to canola in this space, I would say, is that Saskatchewan, Canada is largely a reliable supplier of some of the highest quality canola products and some of the most sustainably produced products that you can find on earth. What we've heard from our producers and from our exporting industry right here in Saskatchewan and Canada is that all they would like is to have fair market access into as many markets around the world as possible. And that is the message that we bring to our federal government, and are working alongside our federal government with positioning Saskatchewan and Canada from a canola industry perspective, positioning us in a large degree as we can for success in the next number of weeks.
India is contemplating a tariff on yellow peas, I think. I guess, what are your thoughts on that? How detrimental would that be, or is that on your priority list?
Yeah, all tariffs are detrimental to Saskatchewan agriculture when they're applied to our products. We've been in and out of that conversation or similar conversations with India for the last number of years. And I would say this, Saskatchewan's well positioned in India, very well positioned, I would say, to engage with the Indian government directly. The highest ranking diplomatic individual in India over the course of the last year has been the Saskatchewan Trade Commissioner. Thanks to the Modi government for that, to be the case. We've had Canada's had a tumultuous relationship with India over the last couple of years with respect to the number of diplomats, and we're happy to see that both countries have appointed their high commissioners to return to in-country. But the last year, at least, the highest-ranking diplomatic individual in India has been the Saskatchewan Trade Commissioner, and they've been working actively, directly with the Modi government as well as with producer groups and importers in India on the challenges that may bring. But again, this is not a new conversation with India. It's an ongoing conversation. And we view Saskatchewan as being an ongoing and long-term trade partner with India. And we'll work through these, whether they be tariff or non-tariff related barriers that arise from time to time. This is doing business in a global world. You are constantly going to be, working through challenges just like this. Admittedly, on the canola front, and in particular with the U.S. and China, it is on a much higher number of products at a much higher tariff rate, all at the same time. And so this is the most significant challenge that we have had in the canola industry, with the uncertainty with the U.S. market, the uncertainty and tariff-related challenges with the Chinese market, which is our second largest market. And additionally, some of the movement of product that we're seeing from country to country, global product, starting to move in and out of markets. So it is a very uncertain time, and we're hopeful to provide some certainty in this space sooner rather than later.
What are you expecting the outcome of this China trade? Like, how many days will it take for the talks? Especially China is a growing market.
I think we're in China on the ground for a couple of days, while you'll be in South Korea, and then in Japan for a 2 or 2.5 days as well. Both Minister Kaeding and I will be there as well. We won't be discussing the details of our itinerary. However, we're meeting with a number of I would say government, or the equivalent of ministry organizations and such. We've opened up all of those meetings to our federal parliamentary secretary that will be joining us in China, as we are working side by side on this issue, and we have a mutual outcome that we desire, which is broader than just the canola industry as well. I would say, and Minister Kaeding might speak to South Korea, but with respect to Japan, there can be a further deepening of our trade relations with Japan as well, not just in the opportunities around canola and some value-added agricultural products, but potash, uranium, fuel sources of other kinds, as we see LNG discussions starting to surface here in Canada. So the opportunities are endless right now, and I would maybe just close my answer, and if you have anything to add, Minister Kaeding, I would say this, and I've said this before, but the challenges in the global trade environment that we see today are very, very evident, and many of you are going to report on them each and every day. They're obvious, and they're well talked about. For a province and a province like Saskatchewan and a nation like Canada, there are some tremendous opportunities that will not be as easily identifiable. But we have a very resilient, independent Saskatchewan people that are working in industries, and I would say more broadly Canadians, that are identifying those opportunities, and we certainly, I think, have some opportunities to act on them, alongside and as a subnational government, but as a national government, to support those opportunities as they arise, and to find us as Canadians in a better place.
If the temporary foreign worker program were to be scrapped, what effect would that have on?
We haven't really discussed that because it is not, I think, proposed to be scrapped by the Government of Canada as we speak. But I would say, whether it be the Government of Canada or an opposition party that will be running to be Government of Canada in the next election, it is fair for us as Canadians and various levels of government to be discussing our immigration metrics and priorities moving forward. And Saskatchewan's voice in that has always been to really center any solid immigration policy around economic immigration that is good for those that are immigrating to in our case, a Saskatchewan community, but also good and their family, but also good for the community where they will reside, good for the province and good for Canada.
Perfect, thanks everybody.